Daddy. The word hit me so hard that, for one ridiculous second, I actually turned around. There was nobody behind me. Just a family pushing a stroller past the giraffe enclosure, and a teenager trying to save a melting ice cream cone. Daddy. This time, the voice sounded closer. And scared. I looked down. A little boy who couldn't have been older than 5 stood a few feet away. His sandy blonde hair stuck up in the August heat, and his blue eyes were glassy with tears. He wasn't looking at me like he knew me. He was looking past me, searching. Then his eyes met mine. His face crumpled. Before I could ask what was wrong, he hurried forward and wrapped both arms around my leg. My name is Noah Bennett. I was 27 years old, single, and spending Saturday afternoon alone at the zoo because staying in my apartment had somehow felt more depressing. Comforting a lost 5-year-old had definitely not been on my schedule. I crouched until we were eye level. Hey, buddy. Are you looking for your dad? He nodded hard. I can't find him. Okay. What's your name? Milo. All right, Milo. I'm Noah. His fingers closed around 2 of mine. Do you remember where you saw your dad last? Milo shook his head. There were people everywhere. Kids laughing. Strollers rolling past. Families taking pictures. Somewhere near the food court, an announcement crackled over the speakers. To a 5-year-old, the place probably felt enormous. I kept my voice calm. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to stay where people can see us, and we're going to get someone who works here to help. You're not leaving? No. That answer came faster than I expected. I'll stay with you until we find him. Milo stared at me for a second. Then his grip tightened. I led him to a nearby bench and flagged down a zoo employee. She contacted guest services while Milo and I stayed in plain sight. I offered him some bottled water from the nearby concession stand, but he shook his head. Your dad's looking for you, I told him. How do you know? Because if you were my kid, I'd be looking everywhere. He leaned against my arm. For a few minutes, we just waited. Then someone shouted his name. Milo. The boy shot to his feet. Dad. I followed his gaze. A man was pushing through the afternoon crowd toward us. He was tall and broad-shouldered, maybe 6'2", with dark brown hair and a navy shirt. His face had gone pale with panic. He moved like someone whose entire world had disappeared and suddenly come back into view. Milo ran toward him. The man dropped to his knees and caught him. For half a second, there was nothing on his face but relief. Then he looked at me, at the stranger who had been sitting beside his missing son. The relief vanished. His expression hardened. Get away from my son. The words were quiet, but they still stopped me cold. I immediately stepped back. The man pulled Milo against his chest. Are you okay? Are you hurt? Where did you go? I'm okay, Dad. Milo pointed at me. Noah helped me. The man's eyes returned to mine. Who are you? Noah Bennett. He was near the giraffes by himself. I got an employee. I nodded toward the woman standing nearby. Guest services knows he's been found. The employee confirmed everything. Some of the tension finally left the man's shoulders. He closed his eyes for a moment and pressed his forehead against Milo's hair. I looked away for maybe 30 seconds. You saw the penguin sign, Milo said. The man gave a breathless laugh. I saw the penguin sign. And then I couldn't see you. I know, buddy. He held Milo tighter. I'm sorry. Watching them, I suddenly felt like I was standing inside a family moment that didn't belong to me. Then the man stood. Grant Callahan. He offered me his hand. I owe you an apology. I shook it. You thought a stranger had your kid. I get it. That doesn't excuse how I spoke to you. If I'd spent 20 minutes looking for a 5-year-old in a zoo this crowded, I probably wouldn't open with perfect manners either. Grant almost smiled. Almost. I took that as my cue to leave. Anyway, I'm glad he's okay. I'll let you two get back to your day. I turned. I made it 3 steps. Then small sneakers slapped against the pavement behind me. Milo wrapped both arms around my waist. Milo, Grant called. I looked down. The brightness had disappeared from Milo's face again. Hey, I said gently. Your dad's right there. You're safe. Are you leaving me too? The question was so simple that it took a second for the weight of it to land. Grant went still. I crouched again. I'm just going home. Milo looked at the ground. People go home and don't come back. Something changed in Grant's expression. Not embarrassment. Not irritation. Something older. Something painful. He came closer and rested a hand on Milo's shoulder. Buddy, Noah has his own life. He helped you today, and that was really kind. But we can't ask him to stay. Milo nodded. His fingers were still curled around my sleeve. Sorry. That tiny apology hurt more than it should have. You didn't do anything wrong. Grant gently took his son's hand. Come on. We still have to find Gerald. Gerald? Milo gasped. My giraffe. Grant closed his eyes. A stuffed giraffe. About 12 inches tall. He slept with it every night since he was 2. He looked at Milo. And apparently we've lost that too. Milo looked ready to cry again. I should have said goodbye. Instead, I looked back toward the crowded path. I remember where he had it last. Grant stared at me. You don't have to help. I know. Milo's face lifted hopefully. I pointed toward the elephant exhibit. Come on. Let's go find Gerald. Gerald wasn't where I remembered him. Milo stared at the empty bench like someone had personally erased the sun. He was right there. Grant rubbed a hand over his face. We can check lost and found. Milo looked horrified. Gerald doesn't know where lost and found is. I bit the inside of my cheek. Then we'd better retrace our steps before Gerald starts filing complaints. Milo grabbed my hand. When I looked at Grant, the smallest smile had broken through his serious expression. We walked back through the zoo. A peacock suddenly called from somewhere nearby. Milo jumped. Grant immediately moved closer and rested a hand between his son's shoulders. Just a bird, buddy. Milo leaned against him for half a second. That tiny gesture told me more about Grant than anything he'd said. He knew exactly when his son needed reassurance, and exactly how much to give. 10 minutes earlier, I thought Grant Callahan was intimidating. Now I was seeing someone else. A tired father. A careful father. A man who was scared of losing the one person he loved most. We checked 2 benches, a drinking fountain, and the railing near the elephant habitat. Nothing. Then I remembered Milo carrying something yellow near a shaded picnic area. We doubled back. Under one of the tables, almost hidden behind a bench, I spotted 2 soft brown legs and a yellow felt tail. Milo. I pointed. His entire face changed. Gerald. He rushed forward and scooped up the stuffed giraffe. Grant exhaled beside me. You saved the day twice. I mostly looked under a table. You stayed. His voice softened. That matters. Milo announced that Gerald was hungry. Apparently, this also meant Milo was hungry. Grant offered to buy me lunch as a thank you. 20 minutes later, I was sitting across from them at an outdoor table with a lemonade and a basket of fries between us. Milo narrated Gerald's complicated life story. Grant occasionally translated. I laughed more than I expected to. Grant did too. When Milo got ketchup on his cheek, I reached over without thinking and wiped it away with a napkin. My hand stopped halfway back. Grant was watching me. Not suspiciously this time. Just quietly, almost like he was surprised. Then a woman passing our table smiled at Milo. What a cute kid. She looked from Grant to me. You two have an adorable son. I nearly choked on my lemonade. Grant opened his mouth at the exact same time I did. Oh, we're not together. We said it in perfect unison. The woman blinked. Oh, sorry. My mistake. She hurried away. Milo dissolved into giggles. Grant looked at me. I looked at him. Then we both started laughing. A few minutes later, Grant pulled out his phone. Milo's going to want to send you photographic proof that Gerald survived the trip home. Is that right? Absolutely, Milo said. Grant gave me a hesitant smile. Would it be okay if I got your number? There were a dozen sensible reasons to say no. I didn't use any of them. Sure. Grant handed me his phone. I typed in my number and gave it back. At the time, it felt like a small thing. Just a phone number. Just a strange afternoon at the zoo. I had no idea how much of my life had just changed. For the next 3 days, I told myself I'd never see Grant Callahan or his son again. Then my phone lit up Tuesday evening. Grant. The first message was a picture. Gerald sat at their kitchen table beside a plate of animal crackers. Underneath it, Grant had written, "Proof of life." I laughed. Another message appeared. Milo says Gerald is recovering well. I typed back. Tell Milo I'm relieved. I was worried about the emotional trauma. Grant replied, Gerald has requested privacy during this difficult time. That should have been the end of it. Instead, we kept texting. We talked about the zoo, work, terrible coffee, the fact that Milo believed stuffed animals needed breakfast. A conversation that should have lasted 2 minutes somehow lasted until almost midnight. By Friday, Grant was texting me without pretending Milo was the reason. 2 weeks later, I was sitting across from both of them at a neighborhood pizza place. Milo carefully removed every mushroom from his slice. You know you can order pizza without mushrooms, I said. Then I don't get to take them off. I looked at Grant. He has a system. He has a system for everything. That pizza became another afternoon together. Then another. A Saturday at the park turned into dinner. Dinner became Sunday morning pancakes at Grant's house, after Milo decided I absolutely needed to see his dinosaur collection. Nothing was official. Grant and I weren't dating. We weren't even calling whatever this was anything. But something was changing. Slowly. Quietly. I learned that Grant drank his coffee black before 8 in the morning and added cream after that. He learned that I stole the crispy fries from the bottom of the basket. I learned that he worked as an operations manager for a regional construction company. He left the office every day by 5. No exceptions, unless there was an actual emergency. I spent enough of my childhood hearing adults say they'd be home soon, he told me once. I'm not doing that to Milo. I understood more about him every time he said something like that. And I wanted to understand more. That was the dangerous part. One evening, Milo fell asleep on the living room rug. Gerald was tucked under his chin. Grant and I sat at the kitchen table while the house finally went quiet. It has been just us for almost 4 years, Grant said. He looked toward his sleeping son. He didn't give me every detail. I didn't ask for what he wasn't ready to share. He only told me that Milo had learned too young that some people leave. Suddenly, I understood his question at the zoo. Are you leaving me too? Dating must be complicated, I said. Grant laughed quietly. People like the idea of a single dad more than the reality. What's the reality? Canceled plans, pediatric appointments, cartoons before sunrise, school schedules, and knowing Milo comes first. He should. Grant looked at me for a long moment. That answer is rarer than you'd think. I looked down at my coffee. I always wanted this. He glanced around the kitchen. This? A home people actually want to come back to. There were crayons near Milo's backpack. Tiny sneakers beside Grant's much larger ones. A plastic dinosaur under the table. Nothing matched. Nothing was perfect. That was exactly why I liked it. I don't mean your life specifically, I added. That sounded weird. Grant smiled. A little. I just mean this feeling. And you never had it? Not really. I smiled before the conversation could become heavier. Maybe that's why I'm good at finding lost giraffes. Grant laughed. After that night, something shifted. Whenever I came over, there was a place for me at the table. At first, I thought it was coincidence. Then one Sunday, I arrived late. Milo's coloring books covered one chair. Grant's jacket was hanging over another. But the chair beside Grant was completely empty. Milo pointed. That's Noah's seat. Grant looked embarrassed. I should have laughed. Instead, I sat down. Grant slid a cup of coffee toward me. It already had exactly the right amount of cream. I looked at him. You remembered. He shrugged. Apparently. Neither of us mentioned the empty chair. Neither of us needed to. The call came at 1:17 in the morning. I woke to Grant's name glowing. On my phone. Grant. For a moment, all I heard was breathing. Then he said, Milo has a fever. I sat upright. Grant had already called the pediatric nurse line. He was following their instructions and monitoring Milo closely. Nothing suggested an emergency. Still, there was something unfamiliar in Grant's voice. Fear. Grant Callahan, the man who always seemed prepared for everything, sounded scared. Do you want me to come over? Silence. You don't have to. That wasn't my question. 25 minutes later, I was standing on his porch in sweatpants and an old college sweatshirt. I'd stopped at a 24-hour pharmacy for electrolyte drinks, crackers, and a digital thermometer. Grant opened the door. He looked exhausted. You came. Of course I came. Milo was curled beneath a blanket on the couch. Gerald was pressed against his chest. His cheeks were flushed. When he saw me, his tired eyes brightened. Noah. I sat beside him. I heard somebody decided tonight was too boring. Milo managed a tiny smile. Grant sat on the other side. He kept track of the time and checked Milo's temperature according to the nurse's instructions. There was nothing dramatic about the next few hours. We gave Milo water. Grant changed the cool cloth on his forehead. I read the same picture book twice because Milo asked me to. Around 4 in the morning, his temperature started coming down. Grant's shoulders finally relaxed. Thank you, he whispered. You've said that about 50 times. Then I probably mean it. Eventually, Milo fell asleep between us. I meant to stay awake. I didn't. When I opened my eyes again, pale morning light filled the room. My neck hurt. Grant was asleep at the other end of the couch. Milo lay between us. One small hand was tangled in Grant's shirt. The other was wrapped around my sleeve. I stared at it. For a few quiet seconds, none of this felt borrowed. It felt like home. That thought scared me more than I wanted to admit. Grant woke a few minutes later. He looked down at Milo. Then he looked at me. Neither of us said anything. Later, Milo ate some toast and declared himself healthy enough for cartoons. I made coffee in the kitchen while Grant worked on breakfast. Milo shuffled in with Gerald and climbed onto a chair. Dad. Yeah, buddy. Milo pointed at me. Can Noah stay forever? The spoon in Grant's hand stopped. So did my heart. Grant looked at Milo, then at me. His lips parted. Nothing came out. 1 second passed, then another. I knew it wasn't fair to expect an answer. Grant and I had never called this dating. He'd never promised me anything. Still, his silence found every old place inside me that remembered what it felt like not to be chosen. I forced a smile. Forever's a long time, buddy. Milo frowned. But you like it here. I do. And Dad likes you. Grant inhaled sharply. I looked at him. I waited. He still couldn't say anything. I set down my coffee. I should head home and let you rest. Milo looked disappointed. Noah. Grant finally found his voice. But I was already reaching for my jacket. The empty chair at their table suddenly felt like exactly that. An empty chair. Maybe I'd only been the person available to fill it. I made it to my car before Grant caught up with me. Noah, wait. I stopped with one hand on the door handle. The morning air was cool. Somewhere down the block, a lawnmower started. Grant stopped a few feet away. I handled that badly. I turned around. He was still wearing the same shirt from the night before. His hair fell across his forehead. You didn't do anything wrong. That's what people say when somebody definitely did something wrong. Normally, I would have smiled. This time, I didn't. Milo surprised me, he said. I didn't know how to answer. I know. Then why are you leaving like this? I stared at him. Because I need to remember what this actually is. His brow tightened. What does that mean? It means I care about Milo. I swallowed. More than I expected to. Grant stayed silent. And I care about you too. Saying it aloud made me feel painfully exposed. But somewhere along the way, I stopped feeling like a family friend. I started feeling like I belonged here. Grant looked at me. I kept going because stopping would have been worse. I can't become the convenient person who fills an empty chair. And I can't let Milo start thinking I'm going to be his other dad while you're still deciding whether you even want me in your life. Noah, that's not what this is. Then tell me what it is. Grant opened his mouth. No answer came. I nodded. That's what I thought. His face fell. You're asking me something I haven't let myself think about in years. I'm not asking you for anything. I looked toward the house. Through the window, I could see Milo sitting on the couch with Gerald, watching cartoons. I love that kid, Grant. The words surprised even me. That's exactly why I can't pretend to be something permanent in his life unless you know what you want me to be in yours. Grant's eyes locked on mine. You think I'm using you? No. I shook my head. I think you're lonely. I think Milo loves having me around. And I think I let myself confuse being needed with being chosen. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Then Grant said quietly, I do choose you. My heart stumbled. I forced myself to stay still. As what? That was the question. Grant couldn't answer it. Not yet. I got into my car before hope convinced me to stay. The following week felt wrong. Not dramatic. Just empty. Grant sent messages. I answered, but I kept my replies polite and short. Milo sent me a picture of Gerald wearing a paper crown. I stared at it for 10 minutes before replying. Very distinguished. I missed Milo. I missed Grant more than I wanted to admit. Friday evening, Grant called. I almost let it ring. Almost. Hello. I've spent the entire week trying to answer your question. I closed my eyes. Grant. Please. Just listen. His voice was steady, softer than usual. I thought Milo was the reason I kept inviting you back. I didn't say anything. Then you stopped coming. He took a breath. And I realized Milo isn't the reason I miss you after he goes to sleep. My chest tightened. He isn't the reason I remember how you take your coffee. He isn't the reason I reach for my phone every time something funny happens. I sat down on the edge of my bed. Grant continued. The other morning, I made your coffee before I remembered you weren't there. That hurt in an entirely different way. I kept looking at your chair. During dinner, after Milo went to bed, the house was quiet, and all I could think about was how much I wanted to tell you something stupid that happened at work. His voice dropped. I know what you are to Milo, Noah. A pause. I think I'm finally beginning to understand what you are to me. I wanted those words to solve everything. They didn't. Understanding what you feel and being ready to do something about it aren't the same thing, I said. I know. I need some time. Another pause. Then Grant said, "Okay. No argument. No pressure. Just okay." The next evening, he called again. This time, the conversation was different. He told me he'd talked to Milo that afternoon. I didn't know why that mattered until Grant explained. I asked him about the zoo. I leaned back against the couch. "What about it?" I asked why he grabbed you. Grant laughed softly. He looked at me like I was an idiot. That sounded like Milo. Grant told me the rest. Months before the zoo, Milo had gone to a classmate's birthday party. The boy had two fathers. Later, Milo had asked Grant why some kids had two dads, and he only had one. Grant had explained that families could look different. Some had one parent. Some had two. Some had grandparents raising kids. Some had two moms. Some had two dads. Then Milo had asked if he might ever have another dad. Grant had told him that maybe, someday, if he fell in love with someone, their family might grow. It had been a simple conversation to Grant. Milo had remembered every word. At the zoo, when Milo got separated from Grant, he'd been calling for his dad. That was the daddy I'd heard. He hadn't been calling me that. He'd been terrified and searching for Grant. Then he'd seen me. I was the stranger who stopped. The stranger who crouched down so he didn't have to look up. The stranger who promised not to leave until his father came back. According to Grant, Milo had put it much more simply. I was scared. Noah stayed. I pressed my lips together. Grant's voice softened. He told me that's why he grabbed you. I didn't know what to say. And then he asked me if you were going to leave because he'd done something wrong. My chest tightened. What did you tell him? That none of this is his fault. Good. And that the grown-ups need to figure out the grown-up part. I smiled despite myself. Also good. Grant was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "He didn't make me realize I care about you." I waited. He made me realize I've been hiding behind being his father because it's easier than admitting I'm scared. That stayed with me long after we hung up. The next evening, my phone buzzed. One message. "Can we talk tomorrow?" I stared at it, then typed, "Yes." Grant didn't ask me to come to his house. He didn't mention Milo. Instead, he asked me to meet him Sunday afternoon. At the zoo. Sunday arrived bright and clear. I walked through the zoo alone. Every turn carried a memory. Milo's hand around mine. Gerald under the picnic table. Grant laughing over French fries. When I reached the giraffe enclosure, Grant was already there. Alone. No Milo. No excuse for why he needed me. Just Grant. He looked nervous. For the first time since I'd known him, genuinely nervous. "Where's Milo?" "With my sister." Grant took one careful step toward me. "Because what I need to say today isn't about what my son wants." He held my gaze. "It's about what I want." Families moved around us. Children laughed in the distance. But the space between Grant and me felt strangely private. "I've spent years making every decision around Milo," he said. "What neighborhood we live in. What hours I work. Who I let into our lives. There's nothing wrong with putting him first." "No." Grant shook his head. "But I started using that as an excuse not to risk anything for myself." He looked toward the giraffes. "Then you showed up." Technically, Milo showed up. That finally pulled a smile from him. "Fair point." He stepped closer. "At first, I thought I kept inviting you back because Milo liked you. I stayed quiet. Then I started waiting for your messages after he was asleep." My throat tightened. "I started buying the coffee you like. I started saving you a seat without realizing I was doing it." He looked directly at me. "When you stopped coming over, Milo missed you." A pause. "But so did I." I looked down. "Grant, I can't be somebody you choose because losing me makes your house inconvenient. That's why Milo isn't here." His answer came immediately. "He's having a great afternoon with my sister and probably eating more cookies than I'd approve of." I almost smiled. Grant moved closer. "I asked you here alone because I needed you to see me choose you when nobody else was here to choose you for." The sounds of the zoo seemed to fade. "I miss talking to you when nothing important happened," he said. "I miss hearing you laugh at my terrible jokes." "They are terrible." "I know." His mouth twitched. "I miss watching you steal the crispy fries and pretend you're helping me." "I am helping." "Of course." Now I did smile. Grant's expression softened. "I miss sitting with you after Milo goes to bed. When there's no parenting left to do. No problem to solve." He took a breath. "When it's just you and me." I'd spent days preparing myself to protect my heart. Suddenly, every defense felt heavier than it needed to be. "You took a long time to figure that out." "I know. Your son was faster." "He usually is." I laughed. Grant's shoulders finally relaxed. Then he became serious again. "Noah, I don't know exactly what our future looks like. I waited. I can't promise I'll always say the right thing. I can't promise this will always be easy. He stepped closer, but I'm not looking for someone to fill a role. His eyes stayed on mine. I want you. My throat tightened. Not a substitute parent. Not somebody convenient. Not a person who happens to be good with Milo. His voice dropped. You. My eyes burned. That's all I needed to know. Grant lifted one hand, then stopped. That hesitation mattered more than confidence would have. Can I kiss you? I nodded. Yes. He leaned closer. The kiss was gentle, warm, careful. There was no cheering crowd. No perfect music. Nothing dramatic. Just Grant's hand against my cheek, and the strange certainty that something in my life had finally settled into place. When we separated, he rested his forehead lightly against mine. Then he laughed. I can't believe our first kiss happened beside giraffes. Your family has a theme. Apparently. He took my hand. Then his expression turned amused. Milo did make me promise to ask you one thing. I raised an eyebrow. That sounds dangerous. It's surprisingly reasonable. What? Grant squeezed my hand. Are you coming home for dinner? Home. The word landed differently now. Not because Milo wanted me there. Not because there was an empty chair. Because Grant had asked. I didn't hesitate. Yeah. Grant smiled. I'd like that. We started toward the exit. He didn't let go of my hand. 1 year later, Milo still insisted Gerald needed his own ticket to the zoo. He's a giraffe, Milo explained as we walked through the entrance. This is basically his family reunion. Grant looked at me over Milo's head. I could already see the joke forming. Don't encourage him. I was going to say Gerald should get the family discount. Milo laughed and ran several steps ahead. His sandy blonde hair bounced in the warm afternoon sunlight. Stay where we can see you, Grant called. Milo immediately slowed down. Some things had changed during the past year. Others hadn't. Grant still made my coffee exactly the way I liked it. Milo still believed pancakes tasted better when shaped like animals. Gerald had acquired 3 sweaters, a backpack, and a tiny paper birthday crown. And the chair beside Grant at the kitchen table wasn't called Noah's seat anymore. Nobody needed to explain it. It was simply where I sat. I hadn't moved into Grant's house overnight. We'd taken our time. We dated like 2 adults learning how to make room for each other, while one very enthusiastic little boy occasionally offered unsolicited advice. There were awkward conversations, changed plans, school events, quiet evenings, ordinary mornings. The ordinary part surprised me most. I'd once imagined love arriving as some enormous moment that changed everything at once. It didn't. It arrived in packed lunches, shared grocery lists, Grant leaving the porch light on when I worked late, Milo falling asleep against my shoulder during movie night, coffee waiting for me in the morning, a toothbrush beside Grant's, my shoes by the front door. By spring, my apartment lease was ending. Grant asked me to move in, not because Milo needed another parent, not because Grant needed help, because we'd built something together, and we were ready for the next part. Now, walking through the zoo with them, I could barely remember what my old apartment had felt like. Giraffes first, Milo announced. Penguins first, Grant said. Milo stopped. He stared at his father in disbelief. You know the rules. I was testing you. Dad, giraffes it is. I laughed. Grant reached for my hand. His fingers slipped naturally between mine. We followed Milo around the bend. Then the familiar giraffe enclosure came into view. I stopped without meaning to. Same railing. Same broad shade trees. Same stretch of pavement. Grant noticed. Thinking about something? Just remembering. Milo turned around. Remembering what? The day somebody got lost. Milo put both hands on his hips. I didn't get lost. Grant raised an eyebrow. That's an interesting revision of history. I was looking for you. You were definitely lost while doing it. Milo ignored him. I smiled. I remember hearing you call for your dad. Milo hugged Gerald against his side. I was scared. I know. He came closer. Then you stayed. For a second, I couldn't speak. Grant squeezed my hand. Milo looked between us. Worked out pretty good. Grant laughed. Pretty well. Milo frowned. That's what I said. I laughed so hard I had to look away. A zoo employee standing nearby smiled at us. She looked at Milo. Having a good day with your dads? This time, nobody rushed to correct her. Milo nodded. Yep. One simple word. No announcement. No performance. No child trying to solve an adult relationship. Just an answer to a question that had become ordinary. Grant looked at me. I looked back. Then Milo grabbed my free hand and pulled me toward the giraffes. I used to believe family was something other people knew how to build, like there was a secret language everyone else had learned before I arrived. I was wrong. Family wasn't one big moment. It wasn't a frightened child choosing a stranger. It wasn't an empty chair waiting for someone to fill it. It wasn't even a first kiss beside the giraffes. Family was what happened afterward. It was showing up, making room, getting scared, telling the truth, choosing each other, and then choosing each other again the next morning. A year earlier, I'd been alone at the zoo because going home to an empty apartment felt worse. Then I heard a frightened little boy calling for his father. I stopped. That was all. I stopped. Milo had been looking for Grant. Instead, for a few minutes, he found me. And somehow, by staying with him until his father came back, I stepped into a life I hadn't known I was searching for. Grant squeezed my hand. Milo tugged us forward. Gerald bounced under his arm. And the three of us walked beneath the summer trees together. I didn't wonder anymore whether the place beside them belonged to me. Nobody had to save me a seat. I already knew where I sat.